Welcome back. MPs are today set to vote for the proposed 2025 budget after intense deliberations on the proposal, including a VAT increase. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana revised his proposal from an earlier 2 percentage points increase to a 1 percentage point over 2 years after objections. The ANC and the DA have been engaged in negotiations in an attempt to find common ground, and talks have deadlocked as the two parties could not come to an agreement. Should the National Assembly not receive the intended threshold that they need to pass the budget today, what comes next and how would that impact ordinary South Africans? To help us make sense of this, we are now joined by the chairperson for the Fiscal Commission, Dr Nombeko Mbava. Dr Mbava, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning.
Thank you so much, Aldrin. It's good to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me.
I want to start off with what transpired yesterday and the processes that need to be followed. So after the Minister of Finance makes his budget proposal to Parliament, then there are various committees that will be sitting down to deliberate on some of the reports, including the amendments that were proposed by the Minister in his budget speech. Then what happens in the committee before that report actually is handed over to Parliament, where Parliament would then be voting on the budget?
Yes, thank you so much. So subsequent to the minister having tabled his budget, as you rightfully say, so the report that the minister has tabled forwarded to those two finance committees of the National Council of Provinces and also National Assembly. So those two committees jointly must now interrogate the proposal that have been made by the executive, which is essentially government through the Minister of Finance. And when they look at this proposal, there are specific criteria that they look at. They must look at the proposed revenues for the next 3 years, this year and the next 2 years, the expenditure. They must look at the debt situation of the country for the next 3 years. How is it going to be paid? They must look at any borrowings. And also, they must look at the macroeconomic environment that is being proposed. So essentially, we look at the policy and fiscal policy that the minister is proposing. And they must actually interrogate this as to whether it is actually feasible. And when they are doing this, they must also do public consultation, go to the public and invite various stakeholders. And they must also invite two institutions that are mandated in the Money Bills Act, which is my institution, the Financial and Fiscal Commission, as well as Parliament's advisory institution to these committees, which is a PBO. Subsequent to having done that, now they must come up with either there are two ways of them to actually come up now with this with the report. They deliberate, but in the report there must be a key outcome which is very specific in the report. The report must specify whether those committees want to accept the proposal, the fiscal framework, or want to amend the fiscal framework. So what transpired last night is that the committee jointly decided not to amend, but to accept with recommendations. So in this instance, then, they are supposed to guide Parliament as to how Parliament must proceed by either accepting or amending. By either accepting, yes, or amending. So now what they have done is to say, we will not amend as this committee. We will leave it to Parliament to amend. We will not make that decision as this committee. We will rather put in some caveats to say that, yes, we accept on condition that you review these specific issues, the VAT, as well as the tax bracket crib. So in actual fact, even though the committee has the power in the Money Bills Act to actually amend themselves as the committee and be specific and direct Parliament, they are choosing to abdicate that power to Parliament. So now Parliament now must receive this entire report and look at their recommendation, and then using their wisdom as their house and decide whether they want to actually adopt the fiscal framework with these conditions that have been put in. Now, what happens now is that they are putting the ball back into the minister's hands to say that you have 30 days to review your proposal, even though in principle, we do accept it, but you still have 30 days to come up with an amended version, which it could be construed as well as a contradiction.
Yeah.
Therefore, the only people, who can now either amend or accept the report is Parliament, or reject it is Parliament. Right now, because the committee itself has not actually been very specific. Even though they want to make changes, they do not want to come out and be specific to say, we are making amendments. They are just saying that we are making recommendations, we're accepting it.
Yeah, the point that you stipulate now, which is very important, is a contention that has now been raised by the EFF. Not too sure whether you've seen the letter that they've written to the Speaker of Parliament to say that, listen, withdraw the fiscal framework report because it wasn't voted on as they argue that procedure requires that there should be a decision that is taken by the committee on whether it is adopting the report or whether it is amending the report. And from the report that has been shared, or the report that has now, I don't know what the right word is to use for this, that report which will be voted on, that report was neither adopted by the committee and there were no amendments made by the committee. And they say that that is unlawful.
Well, if we stick strictly to the Money Bills Amendment Act, there are only two ways. It's either you accept or you amend. So there are no, you can make your recommendations, but what is important here is that what are you as a committee saying? Are you saying you accept? So if in principle the committee is accepting, it means that they're accepting the proposals that have been tabled by the executive. And the executive can say, okay, you want some recommendation, you made some recommendations, and you're asking me in the next 30 days to go and look into these things. I can just go and look at them, and I can still come back with the same view because you have essentially accepted my proposal. Yes. So I think the important thing now as we move forward, Aldrin, is that what happens now at Parliament. Yeah. So there are scenarios that we have to understand what happens now. Parliament can say we do not accept this proposal, and therefore it must go back to the committee again because they must be specific. And what happens now in the interim, because now we're going to get to a point, remember now it's a new financial year. Government departments must be allocated money, the provinces must be allocated money. So what happens now? So we have to now to say if there is a stalemate at this point, we have to say, what was the last approved fiscal framework? The last approved fiscal framework was in the medium-term budget policy statement. So we have to go back there because now, life must continue. There must be funding. There must be allocations. So we have to go back to the last one while in the interim, this is being sorted out. So we can go back now to the last amended fiscal framework, which was tabled and approved by Parliament in 2024-25 for the next 3 years. And then we just go to that particular year of 2025-26. And then we can start to allocate or to spend. But there is a limit on how far we can spend. We can only spend 45% of the budget for the next 4 months, right? Even after 4 months, nothing is still happening, nothing is moving, there's still an impasse. Then we can only spend 10% of the allocated budget. But in aggregate, if throughout the entire year there's still an impasse, we will just have to be limited to the approved budget that was in the MTBPS for 2025-26. Yeah. So what this means is that that budget that was approved then might not be enough for what we need to do for the country going forward.
Yeah. So when the medium-term budget policy statement later on this year is delivered, once that time comes to deliver the medium-term budget policy statement, how would the medium-term budget policy statement be informed around what to do next if you have the national budget which wasn't adopted the prior months leading up to, let's say, October or November? The date hasn't been set as yet.
Yes, so we still need to have the budget, because we cannot have a subsequent medium-term budget policy statement, because remember, the medium-term budget policy statement is subsequent to the annual budget. So at this point, we still do not have an annual budget which has been approved for the next 3 years because of the impasse that we're in. But what I'm saying is that for us now to proceed in the interim, we are allowed through the Public Finance Management Act, as well as the money bills, to now go back to the last approved fiscal framework just to carry us through. So the expectation is then that in the next 4 months, surely, we will have a clarity as to whether we are adopting the fiscal framework. It's important as well to note, Aldrin, that this fiscal framework, it's important as it is the first budget, it's a fundamental budget which will inform the division of revenue and will inform the appropriations. So the other bills, the appropriations bill that is still not approved as yet, the division of revenue, that means that now the allocations between the 3 spheres of government is still not approved. Those will not be approved up until we have an approved fiscal framework, because the fiscal framework tells us what is the fiscal envelope, how much can we spend, and also if now the minister is asked to revise these numbers, it means all the documents must go back, because now not only just one, it means now the division of revenue must also go back, the appropriation must go back, because now there must be a balanced budget